Welcome back to Rounding the Bases Extra Innings. 4 final questions with Nina Kimbrough. And I want to encourage everybody, as I always do, that if you're watching this and you have not listened to the audio version of the podcast, please go over and check that out wherever you get your podcast. Just look for Rounding the Bases with Joel Goldberg. It's a really amazing interview regarding the Johnson County Christmas Bureau and what they're doing to impact families, provide dignity at a very fun but yet often difficult time of the year for so many. So now I want to do some fun stuff on here. Not that the rest of it wasn't fun, but a little birdie told me that you were, I knew you referenced running track in college, that you were a state track champion. I'm not asking you how many years ago. I never ask a woman how old they are. A champion is a champion for life. What was Nina, a young Nina, like as a track star?
Young Nina was running track and was so it was interesting that we were able to do what we did as a group of young ladies at Bonner Springs High School. And that is a school in Western Wyandotte County. And many people know that area as the Legends right now. And so we were running out there, and with 7 young ladies, we actually won the 5A state championship. And one of the relays that I was on, it was the 4x4 relay. And we did that at like 3 minutes and 56 seconds and were the state champions for the state of Kansas. And that record stood for over 30 years. We'll just say that. We'll just say that. So it recently was 4 other young ladies were able to beat that record by a second, by actually a few tenths of a second. But yes, that record stood for over 30 years. So that's kind of my claim to fame, Joel.
Yeah, I love it. And it's good that it was broken because, one, I believe that all records are meant to be broken. I think most record holders would say that. I've never been a record holder, by the way, at anything, but I talk to record holders all the time, in a lot of sports. But the other piece is that if that record lived forever, you would have to go on and as you're saying, I'm not giving you my age, you'd have to say, well, that record's been around for 40 years. That record's been around for 50 years. Now you could just leave it at that and people could say, okay, we don't know what she is. See, so it protects you a little bit.
Absolutely, it does. And one of the things that happened is when my children were in school, they were very excited about it. They were able to say, "This was my mom, and she's still in this book," Yeah. But we, for so many years, kept saying, "Oh my goodness, this record should be broken," because, like you said, we want to be able to evolve and have sports go from one level to the next. And so we were ready for another 4 young ladies to be able to break that record. And so we all kind of got together and were like, oh, it got broken. And then we're like, oh, it got broken.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But it'll still be in the record books, even if it's not the current one. You can't erase history. And so
Absolutely.
That's a great thing. Second question, you mentioned going over to Kenya and doing a lot of mission trips. What does that do for you?
Wow, that changes my life. I have been so filled emotionally and spiritually and just, I don't know, it has actually impacted my life in numerous ways. On the first mission trip that I went on, my son went with me and he was impacted. He came back to the United States with a different perspective. And I think that's what going out of the country on missions will do. It will allow you to see another side of our world and be able to, one, appreciate our side of the world, and then also appreciate the fact that we have a collective way of being able to impact our world. And that is kind of humbling, being able to know that one person, 5 people, I had lots of supporters that helped me to do this. And many of them said, Nina, that's not my gift. I do not want to do that, but I will support you in doing that. And I think that's the wonderful thing about it, is that we can all find our place in this world. And they were so gracious. They wanted to serve us, and we were there to serve them. And so it really impacted me on seeing the level of poverty there, and also being able to feel like I could do something. But Joel, I will say that when I came back, people were asking me what it was like. And likened it to a teardrop in the ocean. A teardrop in the ocean is not going to make a big ripple, but it does affect someone. So I knew I couldn't do it all, and that hurt my heart, but I was able to make a small impact on the lives that I touched while I was there for those 14 days.
Right. And just hope for more teardrops and more momentum. And that's true of everything really that we do in life that can seem so daunting, such a big task, whatever it might be. Third question, as we round the bases, you had a very famous great uncle. This was the tease at the end of the audio portion of the podcast about potatoes. Tell me about your great uncle.
About potatoes. So my great uncle was.
I love, by the way, that you have a potato just right there on hand.
Just happened to have a potato. Just happened to have a potato. I have been speaking a lot recently about Junius G. Groves. And so I do have kind of a Junius G. Groves kit with me now. So I thought I'd show you my potato because there are a lot of people now that are very interested in the background. And this is a young man that was born into slavery in the Kentucky area through the Great Exodus that you might be familiar with, came to Kansas with about 90 cents in his pocket. And with that became the Potato King. And basically he has been in books by Booker T. Washington, things like that, about his success with being able to produce more bushels of potatoes in a 1 acre span than anyone in the country. So he basically was able to do that. He had over 2,100 acres that he had, 7,000 tree orchards, apples, pears, peaches, cherries, apricots, and a grape vineyard. He was the inventor of the potato sorter. He had the first, they think, in the country, the first African-American golf course. And just very, very interesting person in history, and just happens to be a part of my family. So a lot of the historical societies have been wanting to get more information because many of these inventors and many of the people in history are not actually in our history books. And so it's just nice to be able to know of some of our history right here in the area, right here in Edwardsville, Kansas. And this is part of the Kansas City metropolitan area. And I think just a great icon I have been doing a lot of studying of the history of our family. And so it was just one of the things that my mother, she's 85, they really want her to talk about it. But my grandmother's name was Nina Groves, and this was her uncle. And so Junius G. Groves, look that up. It'll be a very interesting read.
I was going to encourage everybody just to Google Junius G. Groves, Junius, like Julius, but it's an N. Not an L. Junius G. Groves. If you go into Google and put in Junius, it's going to already take you there. I'm pretty sure it did for me. And there's just fascinating information and videos and pictures. It's a really, really cool dive into history. And for someone that's part of the family, really fascinating. So I'll make that my walk-off question here. I mean, you've created your own legacy and you're making an impact in the community, even with this new job over the last year. And so you're pioneering in your own way. But how unique and special was it to be able to dive into that history? Most of us, if we're interested in our genealogy, have to really piece some things together. But yet there was a lot of information about this incredible man in your history. And I believe, if I read correctly, he was the richest black man in Kansas back in the 1900s. So how was that journey for you, just being able to read about your family?
Well, much of the information that's out there, besides the book Negroes in Business by Booker T. Washington, where there's a chapter about him, much of the information was passed down in our family. So we knew about it as little children. we still live on some of the land. The Pleasant Hill Baptist Church that he found, my mother still goes to. Wow. She's Mary Kimbrough, 85 years old. And so our family, what we call my Mama Jean, she just passed last year, 95 years old. Wow. And so that history has been passed down from our family. And much of the information that you read and see, that has come from historical events and memories that our family members have had. So it has been amazing. I think that as I had children, it was even more important to make sure. So now my bedroom at my mother's home is the history room. When I grew up, it was my room as a teenager. Now it's the history room. And the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren now go in there, and my mother still shares with them our history. So I think it's so important for all of our families, for all of us, to go and look at our history and honor our history and others. So I just appreciate how so many people now are wanting to honor the history of Junius G. Groves. There's going to be a street dedicated to him where the family lived. I've been at the Black Archives. They did a celebration for him. The Union Pacific Railway, where he was the first African-American in the country to have an actual railroad spur to come to his property to pick up all of his crops, because he was shipping them all over the country. And so the railroad gave the family a plaque and honored the family. And so it's been an amazing journey to be able to learn about it as a young person, as a child, hearing the stories of our ancestors. But then there are still, his daughter, Lillian, is still living. She's 95 years old right now. But she's still living. Many grandchildren and great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren. There are still groves all over the country. Tuskegee Airmen, one of his sons, one of his grandsons was a Tuskegee Airman. And so there's rich history, I think, in all of our families. Yeah. And it's been so wonderful to be able to research it and find out more information and share it.
Yeah, super cool. And keep passing it on so that it never goes away. And I would think that any kind of family reunion, lots of potatoes and a lot of stories. And that is truly, truly amazing and special and unique. So I love that for your family. And it's a really interesting read and fun to check all of that out. Again, the reason why we are here, Johnson County Christmas Bureau, where Nina is the executive director. Check that out, jccb.org. Check out the audio version of our podcast. And again, Nina, I appreciate all your time.
Thank you so much, Joel. I appreciate being here. I appreciate you.